Hey guys, what's up? It's your course director, Emily Ray here. Just wanted to give you some positive, productive feedback on these portfolio websites that you turned in recently. So I'm going to poke through each of these one by one. I have them loaded in a browser window. Just going to point out some areas for you to concentrate on as you continue to evolve this to its next best iteration. That is to say, the expectation here is that you continue to refine this, that you incorporate the feedback that you receive as it makes sense for what it is that you want to do prior to your next portfolio course. So, certainly our portfolios are a snapshot of where we are in time as we grow and change, as should the content and direction of our portfolio. So it will never be finished, but can it be complete? Absolutely. All right, so first up, we're going to take a look at the site of Kristen Rodriguez. First note is that this isn't the most readable font. The decorative sort of scripted nature of it makes it a little bit harder to read. Something for you to think about. You might want to choose something that is a bit more easily recognizable, right up there for your name, for the brand, for the identity of the site. Scrolling down, we have a bit of an about me. It shows that you're seeking to work in the social media field and talks a little bit about your passions. And kind of where you see yourself going professionally. We've got your contact information down here at the bottom. It does look like the social links are in fact pointed to the right places. The social media accounts, a lot of times people forget and keep that link to Wix. The colors look really nice, work well with the image selection that you have here. There's a lot of kind of interesting spacing, right? So a lot of space here, a lot of space here. But not as much down here in these elements. So my recommendation would be to kind of push everything up a little bit. I would align this navigation up here right next to your name, because you could really move all of this info up, so I'm not having to scroll to see and read this part about sort of what your professional interests are. I'm going to jump here to resume. And so just a little bit of your background, showing what your technical skills are, your professional info, your work experience, education. All of this reads really well. You've done a nice job of basically reorganizing this information for a web layout. A lot of times people like to screenshot their resumes and add it as an image, but that's not a best practice because it reduces the usability of that document, both in terms of how easy it is to read and that it's not optimized for search engines. Again, like when you kind of tighten this up, this spacing up by moving the navigation sort of vertically center with your name and then move all of this, you're just going to be able to get more information above the fold, and above the fold meaning the area before you have to start to scroll. Under portfolio, checking out, we've got some of your latest projects, and they're kind of showed here in kind of like a grid layout. I was hoping that I could click on them to see them bigger, right? Because these thumbnails don't, probably give us the full, ability to appreciate what it is that you've created. And additionally, I'm not quite sure what it is that you're trying to show me, because you told me that you were into social media marketing, but these look like ads and perhaps graphic design projects. So, consider that if you want to get into social media, showing your impact as a social media strategist or marketer. That is to say, whether it's your own accounts or someone else's, the impact that your skills or your management of that environment has over time. To say they started with this amount of followers, engagement, then I posted XYZ content because of this strategy, and now this is the outcome. Might be more appropriate for a social media portfolio. See, we've got a couple of videos here. Now, a few things to think about with this is that give me a title, a description, and then let me know what roles you played in the creation of this. Video editing, could require quite a few people. Were you the writer? Were you the cinematographer? Did you do pre-production? Were you the camera operator? Did you just do the editing? Did you do all of those things? What was the equipment that you used? All of that is contextual information that lets someone know sort of the full scope of your skill set, and then potentially, what it is that you could do for them. So as a potential hire or looking to get into, even if you're looking to get into social media marketing, someone who knows how to use video editing and graphic design editing software is going to be an attractive hire. Checking out next your blog page. So here it's loading in, seeing we've got one post. So kind of contextualizing, that you're a mom and a student, and the, the very real challenges that can present, and the opportunities also. With the blog, I really want to encourage you guys to stay consistent with your posting. Blogs are great ideas because it kind of helps give you an avenue for kind of sharing little vignettes or stories. Maybe not a full portfolio piece, but you could talk about a learning process or project that you're on. It updates your site in terms of the timestamp, which is great for SEO, but it is also a place that you can showcase your writing abilities. And writing is a lot harder of a skill than most people realize. And if you can showcase through a blog that you're a great writer, that's another way to show value. Last but not least, a contact form. It just says contact me. You give a few options there. But why should people contact you? Is it like, what's this site for? Is it just to showcase some of your skills? Or are you using it, as a sort of an attachment to a resume, perhaps? Maybe you are a freelancer and you want to be hired for jobs, or you want to collaborate with other creative folks. If you can identify an appropriate call to action, this would be the place that you would want to put it. Next up, we're going to take a look here at John's site. So we have the BrightPath Consulting Group. And kind of scrolling down, I just want to note that you've created a layout here that gives me a very small viewable window, right? So the header stays in place, which is great, but it's taking up, a good 20% of the page. And then with the Wix branding, you've lost like 1/3 of your visible area. And then, with, my favorite bars and my tabs up at the top, this is just a really tiny area to view your content. So I would consider perhaps an alternate layout that allows kind of shrinking this down a little bit. Use this big hero banner image, but it's kind of generic in that it doesn't say much about what BrightPath Consulting Group does, and I have to scroll for that information. And it pops up here, which is great, but you want to give people a very quick and initial idea of where they've landed and what it is that this site is all about, without having to scroll. So the other thing here is introducing BrightPath Consulting Group. It's great to use a large text header here, but like this is taking up 3 rows of space, again pushing more of the meaty explanatory content down here, and I'm not sure that that's the best way to kind of having to keep people scrolling to find out more. We've got some great images. I'm concerned a little bit about the contrast of this white text. They look a little blown out, meaning the images themselves are very light. You might want to take them into Photoshop and darken them a little bit so that white text gives you enough contrast that you can read it, because if you can't read it, then this design isn't really working for you. Scrolling down, about our business, here we've got a video that isn't really contextualized, right? So like you say, this is what you do, if you want to experience it for yourself, but then what's this video all about? I could push play on it, but there hasn't really been an invitation to do so, such as like, check out what we do through this video, or how this even relates. So just kind of contextually, it seems like it's just floating out there. And we've got a contact us form, simple way to keep in touch. And then we've got the blog down here. And so 10 ways to engage with your clients coming soon, how to stay organized at work coming soon. So it seems, well, maybe not. Maybe this blog post is here. Nope. So you've got some placeholders here, which is fine because you're just really kind of showcasing to me what this could be, or what you might want it to be. Your social media icons are in fact still linking out to Wix, which is kind of a disconnect and a confusing thing. So something you will want to link out. I don't know, John. I mean, I know that you already have a great job and you're pretty far along in career. Was this just an exercise in kind of flexing muscles in the web design or content strategy area? If it is, that's fine, but definitely some thoughts here about how, if you are pushing forward with BrightPath, which legitimately you can do with all of your skills and abilities, just something for you to think about how to best optimize and present this information. Next up, I'm going to take a look at Randy's site. So we got a photo here and just about. So You're a baker who wants to expand your horizons with media communications. So love taking food, photos, cinematography. I love this as a snapshot of you, but it doesn't contextually really match with the photo that you've provided, right? So this is a selfie of you on what looks like a plane. Where's the food? Where's the food photography? You've kind of teed us up to think, that this is the expectation of what we might find here. So I'd really love to see more of that. So we've got a blog here. Room tour, and then we've got another blog here, Randy Eats. So maybe this is the food photography. So I'm loving this, right? But why is it all separate? Okay, so like, why are you sending me somewhere else than this one-stop shop, so to speak? I'm gonna check out your portfolio, go here to the images, and we've got kind of a random collection of what looks like school projects, an infographic, your Butterbean Farms. How does this fit in contextually with kind of what you want to do with media communications? You've said that you're passionate with cinematography and baking and travel, or just food pics in general. And I don't see any of that here. My invitation to you, Randy, is to figure out how to integrate all of these parts. There's not a right way or a wrong way to do it. There's just your way, the way that makes sense for all of the things that make up you. And that's sort of the unique challenge that's presented to all of us with diverse interests, right? How do you best tie these things together in a way that works for you? We've got several videos here, and they look like thumbnails. I'm going to click on one to see what happens. It opens up in a light box. You give me the title and then a description. So I'm, super appreciative of that. Wondering if, like, back here, instead of just providing these thumbnails, I can get the title and descriptions along with what we see here. That way, I'm not having to make all of these clicks, and my user experience is more streamlined. I can read the title and the description, and if I have a limited amount of time, I can decide very quickly which one that I should choose to watch, that will show me what I need to know when I'm considering hiring you for something. Kind of jumping back here, I'm going to go and just see how your resume downloads. It's downloading as a Word doc. So best practice, guys, is anytime that you're providing a copy of your resume as a document on your website, it's not a Word doc, which is kind of proprietary Microsoft software, right? You want a more universal file format that's not easily editable. So a PDF would be a much better version. So go ahead and take that step within Microsoft or whatever program you're creating a resume in, and just file export as PDF. All right, let's jump over to Rogue Elephant. So I believe this is Travis's site, but the brand is Rogue Elephant. It seems, let's see here, it's really nicely laid out. Seems like it could be a Squarespace site. We've begun production on a new short, so that's fun. You kind of give us like this news about what you're up to. Something to think about is that this version of your logo with the text kind of small, makes the text a little bit harder to read, especially when you have it over this pattern background. Is there a version, an iteration of this logo that allows you to just have maybe the elephant and then the name right beside it? That's going to tighten up this area here, allow you to kind of pull more of this information above the fold. So like you've got this, this heading and this hero image up here, but like I can't even fully read it with my screen dimensions. And, so like what can you do to bring more of your important content higher up on the page? Tighten this up. This is a lot of empty space so that I can't even read like creating positive quality content, right? So I'm scrolling down. So focus on quality first, quantity second, balance third. So you kind of talk a little bit about your philosophy of your mindset here, which is great. Titles work well when they're center aligned, but any kind of paragraph text like this, go ahead and left align that for easier readability. As our eyes are kind of transitioning between the end of this line and the beginning of this one, when we have a consistent starting place, it's easier for us to intake that information. Also, the photo that you've chosen to include here is blown out a little bit in terms of the lighting. So you might need to lower the opacity of this, sort of this tinted shadow on top of it to make this text pop a little bit more, because it's a little bit hard to read with the white over. So you've got your clients here, and you've got the logos, but the layperson won't know what these are or the significance of having them as clients. So maybe you could include maybe just a note about what you did for them. kind of scrolling down, we've got testimonials, which is great. People who are willing to, basically promote you as a reputable and recommended source. We've got your social media, which is in fact linking out to other places online. Let me check your Instagram. And yeah, that's looking good. I'm going to go ahead and follow you there. I always like to keep in touch. All right, about us. Let's jump down. Is this a one-pager or is it a new? It's a new page. Okay, so welcome to Rogue Elephant. Again, left align this text. Our team. Find out how we can help you. Again, you want to left align that text. I'm having to do a lot of scrolling. There's not a lot of content on this page or these pages, and the images are certainly beautiful, but I want you to think about how you can distill this a little bit more. Find out how we can help you. It's going to take us to the contact page, which is great. Need someone to help with production needs. All right, that's all working well. Our work, so let's take a look. We've got some of the videos, lots of videos. We see you showed what you did, pre-production, production, post-production. All of this is great because people don't understand how much work making videos, quality videos actually entails. Everybody having an iPhone has led to the belief that most media is created in a very disposable, quick, cheap format, and that's not always the case. So if you can really, contextualize your projects with how much work they actually are, you can justify how much it costs to produce that work. I want you to think about custom thumbnails, right? Instead of sort of these random, kind of frames that end up here. It's one way to just really increase the professionalism and have more of a control over what this page and the experience of this page looks like. I don't have titles, so you've got the title here, right? Explain your video, but give me a title in this space because these, or maybe your custom thumbnails have the title on them, but as is, they're a little busy and just not as easy to quickly kind of sift through and say, this is the one, that I want to check out to see if this company can do what I need them to do. Overall, this is superbly done, and with a few tweaks can get it into an even better spot. So we've got Jenna the Saints up next. So just kind of like a soft and airy aesthetic. You got your brand up here at the top, and your navigation kind of clustered here. It looks a little, with this cluster, it looks a little random in terms of the placement because everything else is kind of left aligned over here to have this kind of center cluster. I might recommend just going ahead and doing it in a flat line as opposed to this kind of circular stacked. That's also going to make this header a little bit shorter and bring more of your content up on the page. So a little welcome message, kind of talking a little bit about, I'm going to refresh this page just to make sure I've got all the content loaded in. A little bit about your mission and sort of, the good work or the impact that you want to make in the world. You talk about brand strategy, web design, and design specialist, right? This seems very spaced out to me and not well sort of explained, right? So you talk about that you do these things and just as text elements, they look kind of plain. If there was some sort of graphic accompanying them or an explanation of what it is involved with each of these roles or each of these kind of hats that you wear, and then we've got this big space down here. So you're pushing me down, and I still don't really know all that much kind of about you or getting an idea of what your work actually looks like. We understand what your aesthetic and kind of a little bit about your voice and focus, but I'm still having to kind of search. Let's see, kind of scrolling down, a big empty space. So you're really not leveraging this homepage and the potential for it to be that the high impact introduction. So I encourage you to spend more time and thought here. So we've got some featured designs. I love that you've included feature here. Let's see, one thing is here you're using first person, I believe. I'm so glad you're here. And then here you talk about yourself in third person. Check out some of Jen's most popular designs. Whichever way you want to go, first person or third person, I would just recommend that you stay consistent across the board. We'll check out some of these in a minute. We've got your blog post, so check out Jen's. So again, a little inconsistent there. I would think about making these thumbnails a consistent dimension, right? So cropping them to 4:3 or 1:1, however it like fits with your aesthetic, but that way you're not going to have this sort of jagged layout. It's going to look a little bit cleaner, more like a grid. So connect with me. This is a great call to action. You really explain this well. Let's jump to projects. So here it's loading in. Get a chance to see some of your work. It's coming in. Graphics, and then photography, Freedom Friday freebies, Instagram coming in, which looks great. Already following you. Let's click on one. It's going to open it up, and it gives this light box effects, right? So like I get to see it in its full form, but what's missing is a title and an explanation of what it is that I'm looking at, right? What were you asked to create? What was this used for? And like, who was the client? Those would be things that would help me fully appreciate what it is that you created and why. You're showing me product. Can you share with me a little bit of your process? Because looking at the finished product on something doesn't necessarily show me all of the work or all of the thought and strategy that went into that. And you want to be able to show, much more dimension, much more of a process than just like, here's the final piece. So I encourage you to kind of revisit this and give them titles and descriptions. Going to scroll down here with the photography. These look great. Gonna continue to scroll. We got your Instagram Freedom Friday freebies. Not sure what's supposed to be there, but imagine that you've got an idea for it that's just kind of like a placeholder. Recommendation for everybody is that until you have content for an area, that you just don't put a placeholder. When it's ready, put it up and it's ready. Otherwise it looks incomplete or forgetful. So moving to the About page, looks like it's taken a minute, but loading in. Okay, so my story. A little bit of your background. This is great. You really are able to share so much of your backstory and kind of what you feel called to do, which is wonderful. Services. So here, media, design, branding, strategy. What does this all mean? I mean, like, what this means. From your schooling and from your research and from your experience. Here we have the kind of, it looks like, again, some placeholder stuff, so not quite finished. Looks incomplete. This needs to be fully explained. Remember that you're helping people who don't understand exactly what branding is or what media or marketing strategy entails. And part of your value is your ability to communicate what that means to people and how they'll benefit from it. Blog, just kind of checking that out. Loading in some posts. All this is looking great. Just kind of looks like some musings and some writings here. You include a featured image in the thumbnail. I think you should probably include that here because the posts look kind of plain without it. Overall, Jen, you've got a lot of great content, great focus. I know you're already doing a lot of this work. So for you, I think the exercise is how do you best package and promote what you're already doing that shows the full value of what you're going to bring to the folks that you work with or that you want to make an impact with. Hope this feedback is helpful towards that end. Last but not least, we've got Eric's site here. Meso or Mezzo, not sure, multimedia. The first thing that kind of strikes me is that this is a little bit difficult to read. You've put a lot of effects on it, and like there's just a lot of different typography going on, right? So we've got these fonts, we've got this one is different. My recommendation is one for headings, maybe a different one for subheadings. and then a body font. So at most 3, but making sure that they're all complementary of the aesthetic that you're trying to establish. What you've done here with like the bevel or the 3D, you do it with multimedia, but you don't do it with the meso. And so like there's just a bunch of inconsistencies, the dirt kind of being kicked up here looks a little blurry. As a proof of concept, I can kind of see what you're trying to do, especially with the extreme weather and the clouds and everything you've got going, so I dig that. But what if it was more of an abstract tornado in the background, like maybe just take a pen tool and go like that, and then have the words be super clear over top of it, right? Because that's really what we want people to be able to see and read, is what's the site that they've landed on. Kind of scrolling down, just to note too that you've pushed the navigation kind of really far down on the page. We've got your story, your background here. How about some pictures too, right? Because you talk about the storms and you talk about your passion and you talk about Doppler and all of that stuff, but it's just text on a page at this point. We've got your places that we can connect on social media, which is great. Pulling up this Instagram to immediately follow it, especially if you're going to produce some really awesome storm chasing adventures for me to follow. So, yep. Coming on back, we've got your contact information here. Let's poke through. We've got services. So this is talking a little bit about photography, musical scores, graphic design, video. This is very boxy, right? So your other page didn't have any real structure to it. This one has like a few thumbnails that are inconsistently sized and placed, and I appreciate this as far as like the organization and the grid, but the information in the grid doesn't really, what I would recommend is move your image, right? Maybe move your image on top of photography and then put this text right underneath it, right? And then maybe get rid of the box, but we just have them like photography, musical scores, graphic design, videography, all in a row. Under photography, so here we get to see some of your images kind of coming in. I'm going to click on one, and so you kind of tell me where it is. That's really cool looking. And the date. So I kind of appreciate knowing that December sunrise. A little bit of extra context. You're getting some good keyword-rich content in there as well. Musical scores. So here we've got kind of what looks like a distorted image, meaning that it looks like it's just been squished. So you probably want to export that again or crop it again so that it doesn't look, it might be that you were trying to fit it in the space, but crop it to fit it in the space and not distort it. And then we've got like places that we can listen to, so that's awesome. We've got your graphic design. So, all right, I love that you've got a few here that kind of are not school projects, like these are school projects, but you've done things that kind of match the extreme weather angle in this, and school projects are great when you don't have anything else that feels more personally aligned with what you're trying to do. But since you have like a really cool focus, I'm very encouraged and glad to see that you've taken the time to like kind of use the skills that you know and are learning more of in school to like create stuff that's more relevant and makes more sense for you. I encourage everybody to do that. Last but not least, we got contact, so contact us. Is it an us or is it just you? Because I think on the home page you talk about, my name is there more people working at the company? Just that's kind of like that tense thing, like first person, third person, plural, so just kind of stay consistent with that. You're looping in these clouds as like this dramatic effect at the beginning, but that doesn't kind of follow through the entire site. Like you really push your content pretty far down and there's like a relatively small window for me to see it. Can we move this stuff smaller, up into the corner, move that navigation right up here in this area, right? And that's going to bring your content higher up on the page so I don't have to scroll as much. I get that immediate impact. Overall, guys, these sites are really far along, and you've done something really great by collecting your work and kind of showing where and how your skills can be applied towards your professional aims and interests. Again, the expectation here is that you take this feedback as it makes sense for what it is you want to do and where you want to go, and apply it prior to getting into Portfolio 7. If you have any questions, let me know.